And we are live. Welcome to this Sweet 16 preview of the Thunderblog Hoops and maybe Hockey Hour. I say that because we're going to talk all college basketball. And if there's time, some hockey. I, of course, though, am the G-Man. With me, as always, is my man, Matty D. How are you?
I am, well, after this past weekend, it's like a void now. I was at work today and I couldn't turn basketball on in the middle of the day. After Thursday and Friday, I need it back. It needs to be every day of the week right now.
I know, right?
And after the weekend, I mean, with the buzzer beaters and everything, I simply can't wait for the Sweet 16. It's going to be incredible. I'm blown away. That was a great weekend of college basketball.
It was incredible. And if you missed any of it, I feel sorry for you. I mean, it's hard not to at this time of the year between all the guys or girls in your office that, you know, oh, I almost picked them, but I didn't. Oh, that's close to picking Loyola. You know, I mean, it's hard to not miss it. I have one buddy who comes into work on Thursday and our boss immediately addresses it like, all right, guys, let's be productive. You can put the games on. And one guy yells out, can we put on the Arnold Palmer? Like everybody looks at him like, what the fuck? He's like, no, I hate basketball. Like,
absolutely not.
Yeah, you're barking up the wrong tree, buddy.
Right.
Stream it on a computer like everyone else does.
Right. Exactly. I wanted to just set the stage because I thought this was maybe the best weekend of college basketball that I can remember in my lifetime.
Yeah.
Because you start off the weekend, but everyone gets their bracket set, and you start off the weekend with probably the best buzzer beater on Thursday was probably Loyola Chicago over Miami early. That was the first one of the tournament, right? Am I right? I mean that was an amazing buzzer beater there. You're thinking, wow, like there's the upset, that we're thinking about. Like there's the one that's coming, and then of course UMBC.
Yep.
And it wasn't. They didn't win. They thoroughly dominated Virginia.
Yep.
To the extent where, like, at the end of the game, I honestly felt bad for Virginia. I did. I felt bad for them.
They were 20.5-point favorites, and they lost by 20 points.
Right. They just got – I was shocked, to be honest with you. Shocked. I thought it was one of the best. I mean, it's not even like it's hard to even – I know it's arguably the biggest upset of all time in college basketball, but you almost can't label it that because they didn't win on a buzzer beater or like a last-second shot or they just thoroughly beat a team that had 2 losses on the season. Yeah. And anybody that tells you that Virginia shouldn't have been number 1 is not – they're just wrong because Virginia is an incredibly talented team, and they've put up 90 points, and they put up 80 points in the season. They've beaten really quality teams. So – I know they're not an offensive powerhouse, but they can score. So UMBC just blew me out of the water, and they never let Virginia get back in the game. And I thought that was one of the biggest upsets I've seen in quite a while. But the thing was, that wasn't even a big upset. There were so many other upsets. I mean, you go down the bracket, UMBC won. Buffalo beat Arizona pretty handily in their second half run. Loyola Chicago took care of business. Let me think. No.
Are we starting with the first round games?
Yeah, I was just running through the West. West region didn't have a lot of upsets, but Marshall beating Wichita shocked me.
Syracuse.
Right, my Stony Brook pick didn't work out for me. I'm very bummed with that. I picked Arkansas over Butler, and then I even picked Arkansas to beat Purdue because I'm not a Purdue fan this year. But Butler, I don't care who their coach is. You can't pick against the Bulldogs. They're just
I did the opposite. I did Butler over Arkansas, Butler over Purdue.
Right.
And got close. Close.
Well, so I don't know. I mean, I stare at my bracket. I actually have I have 3 Final Four teams left still.
Do you?
Even after the carnage. Because so I took Michigan, Duke, Nova, and I took Arizona. Arizona obviously didn't help me at all.
Yep.
But I have nobody left in the South bracket.
I don't either because I picked Tennessee to beat Arizona in the Elite Eight. Tennessee losing.
What were they doing?
I was really upset about that game.
Right.
Then I had Auburn, and I hated the pick. I knew it was terrible.
Oh no, they got hammered,
and they got throttled.
Right.
The best though was just on Auburn, but it's still within the Midwest. Charles Barkley picked Michigan State to go all the way and win the tournament. And if you were watching the in-studio stuff, they made him go and X out every single wrong MSU and any other pick, but the MSU one was the best because at first he like was missing some, and they kept being like, no, Chuck, you missed one. You gotta go back. You gotta go back, Chuck. You gotta go. Like it's too funny. But yeah, I do have Michigan and I have Nova, and that's actually my finals. So I at least have both points.
Great, me too. Who'd you have winning?
I have Nova winning.
We have the same finals. Great.
Yeah.
But I mean, I think
I don't even know where you are in relation to me on the Thunderball group, but
I'll bring it up here in a second.
We've destiny bonded to go wherever we are currently, even though you have 3 Final Fours left, so you can definitely still win.
Right. And by the way, we didn't even talk about some of the buzzer beater and comebacks. I mean, Michigan's buzzer beater, I was running around the basement. I mean, it was
Michigan's
incredible.
Buzzer beater was incredible.
Oh my God, what a shot. What a shot. And then the comebacks by Nevada back. I almost went to bed with Florida State, and they powered through last night against Xavier to beat a really good team. Texas A&M, there's some quote unquote lower seeds who have so much talent that you're very impressed with what they have to offer.
Yeah.
And I think, I mean, so if I'm a team, I don't want to play Texas Tech. I know they're a 3 seed, but I think Purdue's going to have more than their hands full with Texas Tech. I agree. A&M has arguably as much talent as anybody in the country. I'm nervous for Nova because I think their bracket.
I was about to say West Virginia looked really good in the first 2 rounds.
Now, the positive is that they get all week to prepare. I think West Virginia on the second day is really difficult. There's a reason that they're a 5th seed, and I think Nova is without a doubt the best team in the tournament because their weakness is if they don't hit shots. Yeah. But what they showed against Alabama is if they simply normally I was at halftime I was like they got to go inside, and I'm pretty sure Jay Wright was just like keep shooting boys, and they did because they've got guys. They're like Golden State. They got 5 shooters on the floor at most of the time. And they arguably have you could argue they have the 2 best players left in the tournament in Jalen Brunson and Mikal Bridges. I mean, you could argue that. I know that there's some good players out there, but I mean, boy, they are. I walked away from the TV just to take a phone call at halftime, and I came back to them being up by 20 points. I was like, what?
It was unreal. It was a crazy game to watch. It was the first one of the day, and they did the weird scare, not weird, but it was strategically done. So you were at the bar Saturday night, but it was just Nova, Alabama. So you couldn't change it to anything else. So you had to wait. You even had to wait like an extra half an hour for the Duke game to come on afterwards. So you're just watching Bama get pummeled, and you can't even turn it away.
Yeah.
If you want to. And
they just drop guys in their lineup. Like we think of Brunson and Bridges, but DiVincenzo is incredibly talented, and he basically kept them treading water in the first half. Phil Booth comes into the game. They've got Pascal and Spellman who can shoot the 3. I mean, they're just going to Gillespie plays great perimeter defense. They're just going to they have a better bigs than you realize, and they're very new age with their 3-point shooting. Like that's what they're going to do. They're going to shoot. Now they smoked Radford as you expected, and they blitzed Alabama. Yep. West Virginia is better than Alabama.
Yes.
So they're good, and then even if they beat West Virginia, they're either going to play a slightly subdued Purdue team without Isaac Haas or a really difficult Texas Tech team that's big, long, and they can move. So they've got an All-American in Keenan Evans who's back from his injury. So I think they have the hardest road out of their bracket, even with all the upsets going on. I think they kind of got screwed in terms of who they have left. Like that's what concerns me because everywhere else you have an opportunity to play a lower seed. Once again, I think most of the teams left are quality, but I still think they have the hardest road to me. Maybe you feel differently.
No, I would agree with that. I mean, just by pure seeding alone, the only argument I make, like you have to look at, I guess, just a lower seed coming out of it. Like I'd argue Michigan has a semi-tough road just of how well Texas A&M played and how well Florida State looked against Xavier, which by the way,
and don't sleep on Gonzaga.
Yeah, no. That's exactly what I was going to say is Gonzaga arguably could have been a 3 seed. So it's that assuming that's what the Elite Eight matchup is, Michigan Gonzaga, that's going to be very, very exciting to watch.
Right. I agree there. I think Michigan is they didn't really play. Houston's a good team. The thing is, there's a lot of parity. We talked about this before, but there's a lot of parity. I think Houston outplayed them for most of the game.
Yeah.
Now the positive is I'm not sure Michigan's played to their potential yet. So if you're John Beilein, like this is a team that ran the Big Ten tournament because of their ability to spread the floor and hit the three, similar to Villanova, which is one of the reasons why I liked Michigan a lot this year. So if they have not had a dominant effort, which I think is due to the layoff.
Okay.
But now they've kind of had that. They've kind of had 2 big games in a row. I know they beat Montana, but this Houston game really opens their eyes. Like, you better come to play against Texas A&M because boy, they run some guys out on the floor that are more than impressive.
Now, you want to talk about embarrassments? That Texas A&M UNC game.
Oh my God!
They dismantled the Tar Heels.
Right? I was like, what is going on? Robert Williams is a monster, and he's going to give Moritz Wagner and that whole big side for Michigan a problem because he was blocking shots. I wasn't even sure what was going on.
Yeah.
I mean, the hands are definitely full in that regard. I think like let me ask you this question then. Of the four brackets, which bracket is now what would you consider the weakest of the 4 brackets?
Yeah, I was going to ask you the same question. So way to lead it, but
your thunder.
Yeah, no, it's good. We're on the same wavelength. I'm going to say the South just because of seeding, but you could make an argument for the Midwest. You could.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I think you're spot on with the South.
Yeah.
Because as good as Loyola Chicago has played, Nevada, Kansas State, and Kentucky. Well, Kansas State, I didn't think Kansas State played that well against UMBC. I just think UMBC ran out of the magic a little bit.
Yeah.
I could see anybody but Kansas State, I can see coming out of there.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I was going to say it's more Kentucky's to lose.
I would agree.
But you could see Nevada put on some magic. You could see Loyola Chicago continue.
But I definitely think Kentucky. I mean, if you're looking up, I'm with you. The Midwest is kind of interesting because Kansas almost should have lost to Seton Hall.
Yeah,
and I think they're basically they're noving it. They're 4 guards and 1 big.
Yeah.
So if you get what's his name in trouble, that guy's name who's excellent, and I don't know what Clemson did, but you don't beat a 4 seed by 30 points.
Yeah,
and not be a good team.
Exactly.
I do think that maybe after a while, Auburn was just like, damn it.
Yeah.
By the way, the Duke-Syracuse matchup is so juicy.
It is.
But I would agree that I think Duke, and they've been saying this for a while, if Duke plays to its talent level, they're the best team in the country.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
So
I just think, even Greg, who's the biggest Syracuse homer I know, he even was shocked by all of this.
Right.
So I think you could argue. Obviously they're one of the higher seeds left, but you could make they bring that down. Kansas, like you said, is a little shaky. Clemson, they could continue this run, but they're also shaky, and then it could just be Duke's to lose.
I'm with you there. I think between Grayson Allen and Marvin Bagley,
yeah,
I just think there's so much talent on that Duke team. That I think it's going to cause problems for anybody in that bracket and moving forward. Like, I think Bagley makes everybody difficult because of his ability. The only thing with Duke is they haven't really been tested yet. And I like a team like Michigan who has had a tight game early where they had to win. I think that really helps a team kind of get back in the mindset of like, hey, this is not just a walkthrough.
Okay.
So I'm a big fan of teams that have had a little bit of a scrap before they get to a big game because like Nova, first half was tough. They had to really buckle down and like get through a grind out of first half to stay. They were up, but they had to stay up enough to beat a Alabama. Mm-hmm. So I like a team that gets challenged early because I think after that they kind of lock into that mode of like, hey, look, every possession counts. My concern with Duke is they're going to waltz into a Syracuse game, which against a against a Jim Boeheim team, you should never do, and they could struggle a little bit. Syracuse just has that we're the last team in, everyone bashes us kind of thing going on for them too. You combine that with their zone and their coach. Like, I think that's – I think they're a danger. I wouldn't want to be playing Syracuse if I was Duke.
Yeah, so just to give everybody kind of a perspective too, because I'm sure like my head, like I did, I thought they're both in the same conference. They obviously played each other. Looking at this game, it was back in, I don't have the date, but late in the season, they had 5 games left to go. It was at Cameron, so take that for what you will. Duke won 60-44. They shot 41%. Syracuse shot 31%, so a really ugly game. A lot of turnovers forced by Duke. Syracuse turned it over 17 times. And it looks like that both teams stopped scoring with looks like a couple minutes left. So it was a really ugly game on both accounts. So depending on which team we get, if the zone looks like it did against Michigan State and Duke comes out slow, you could see a Syracuse lead going into halftime, as hot of a take as it might be. But if Duke has it going and Syracuse comes out a little slow, it could get ugly quick.
I'm with you there. I think the one thing with Syracuse is actually the biggest team in the tournament. So from 1 through 5, they average the highest height.
Okay.
And I think, and with Bam's 2-3 zone, I think that's a very difficult. So to me, this is where it's going to come up to, and I think Marvin Bagley plays even a bigger role here because he's playing center for them, but he's projected to be a small forward in the NBA.
Interesting.
So the hope is that his mid-range, he's going to play a lot of high posts to me. So the hope is that his mid-range game, if it functions, you have to have a great like high paint, high post player, like foul line player to beat that zone. Because they're going to give up that middle area to you a little bit.
Okay.
So to me, that's where if he can dominate that middle region, and you got to have a point guard, you got to have an offense that's patient against their zone. That's where they get beat. An offense that waits for the right opportunity, it doesn't force it. That's how you beat the zone. Duke has the ability to be that, but they've been frustrating all year. So we'll see if they have the patience against that zone. But I do think they might be able to shut down Syracuse because they've got length. Duke does that Syracuse hasn't seen. So yeah, I mean that's my big thing. So that whole side of the bracket plays first.
No, they're second.
Second.
Yeah, they're second.
Right, second. So the first, of course, there's no day games. Everything's gonna be packed in now. 7:00, 7:07. Loyola,
7:07
Chicago, and Nevada tip off on Thursday.
Yep.
Right. Man, these games are
very intriguing matchup, I think.
Oh, I'm with you too. First of all, I don't think like people probably haven't watched any of their games all year.
No.
Isn't that amazing? Right. Like haven't anybody in the games. Nevada's opening up at a 1.5 point favorite. So so for the first set of games, I'll start and I'll ask you, who do you like? Loyola, Chicago, Nevada.
I like Nevada because they can just put it to you, but the one thing you and I talked about last week is they have been so shaky throughout the year, and you saw it. You saw it encapsulated against Cincinnati. They were down big. They went on that huge run to win the game, and that could very well happen here. Loyola Chicago is able to spread the ball around. They're able to put up some shots. 1.5 point spread, I think is spot on. I do like Nevada to win it, but I think it's going to be close. It's going to be a very close game.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the point you made about Nevada looking shaky. And there's not only is there – so Loyola Chicago played until this year, had always been in Wichita State's conference, which is why we've never seen them. Because Wichita State was dominating, and they would always get the automatic bid.
The Missouri Valley Conference. Yep.
So all of a sudden, the Missouri Valley has a new leader, and that looks to be Loyola Chicago. And what impressed me about them is they don't look like UMBC looked like a mid-major. They had little guys running around, and I loved that. I mean, I was rooting so hard, and I actually thought if they could figure out any way to make a basket in the second half, because Kansas State was basically like, beat us. Like, here we go, beat us. They couldn't do it. I like Loyola Chicago in this game to move on, and I think it's going to be really tight. But how many times can Nevada go back to the bag of tricks and come back? Like I just don't. I was blown away they beat Cincy. I really was, because I thought Cincinnati, second best defensive team in the nation, would put up a fight. What we're seeing early on is defense means nothing. Like if you look, why do you play defense? I do like Loyola Chicago to continue. I've been very impressed. So we're gonna go different on that pick.
Yeah, we're gonna push there.
Now, I don't think it matters, but I'll get to that in a second. So the next
Okay.
game, 7:37 tip in LA. So that's Georgia. In LA, we've got in the Staples Center, we've got Texas A&M 7 seed versus Michigan. Initial thoughts, it's a 2.5-point favorite for Michigan, probably just because of the seed, to be honest with you. What are you thinking, Michigan Tech and the Aggies?
Yeah, so I like Texas Tech or Texas A&M a lot in this game. I have Michigan in the Final Four, so I almost have to stick to my original guns and picking them. But I think that Texas A&M can come out firing in this game and could get up to a big lead very quickly. We talked about it a lot before, but they can shoot the ball well. They obviously have done pretty well with it in the tournament. But to give everybody an idea, they're in terms of points per game, they're not up there in scoring, but they rebound the ball very well. I think they could match up with Michigan in very impressively that way. So they'll keep it close. I'm going to pick Michigan because again I had them originally, but I would not sleep on this. Not going down as an all-timer, if you will.
Right. Well, we talked about Texas A&M coming into the tournament being arguably one of the most talented teams in the nation.
Yeah.
Because they were playing more of as a bunch of parts instead of a whole. They've been very disciplined. But I'm going to go back to the fact that I don't think Michigan has played up to nearly their potential to start this game, to start this tournament. Excuse me. So I know they wanted a buzzer beater. I am going to say that Michigan beats Texas A&M here because I think they finally get to that level of play that we've been waiting to see from them, and I like their ability to spread the floor because if you can keep Williams out of the, so I think they're going to spread the floor, and that's how I think they're going to beat Texas A&M, and I think it's going to be an early jump for Michigan. They're going to make threes to start the game, and they're going to frustrate Texas A&M to the point where they lose a little bit of discipline that's gotten them here. So I'm taking Michigan. I do think it's going to be tight down the stretch because I think at this point it's tough to have a blowout. So, but I'm going to take Michigan in this one.
Yeah, I like it.
So I'm with you, but I'm with you. Texas A&M wins this. I actually think, as much as I like a team we're going to talk about, I think one of these two teams is going to the Final Four. We'll see what happens.
Yeah, I don't hate that.
Yeah, I do think UNC. I think they deserve the 2 seed. I think they were a little overrated because of what happened last year, because of their Roy Williams, Joel Berry. But I think they were a little overrated as a 2 seed. They made a great run in the ACC, but I think Texas A&M's victory over them. I don't think it's as strong as say the victory over Cincinnati for a 2 seed, but I do think it was a big victory for them. So I like one of these two teams to come out of this area here.
No, I love it. I love it.
So the next game, we're going to wait a little bit. 9:37 out in Phillips Arena in Atlanta, Georgia. So we got to wait till the Loyola Chicago ends. Kansas State versus Kentucky.
Big Blue Nation.
6-point line for Kentucky right now.
Yep.
Which I would say is a pretty big line for a 5 versus a 9, but I also watched Kansas State play, and I don't think it's big enough. But thoughts on this one?
I 1,000,000% agree with you that it is not big enough. I think Kentucky is very clearly the better team here. I would argue, we talked about this before, of which quadrant is the weakest. Kansas State's a big reason why the South is one of the weakest remaining. They didn't play very well against UMBC. They only beat them by 7. Say what you will about how the Retrievers did and everything. They also, we got to kind of look back a little bit. They played Kansas in the Big 12 tournament and got blown the fuck out. They don't shoot the ball very well. They have a pretty good defense, but I just don't like it that much here. I think Kentucky outclasses them on all accounts, whether it's scoring, defense, rebounding, passing, whatever you have it. I just think Kentucky's better in this.
Right. I couldn't agree more with you there, and I think a lot of it comes down to their excellent young point guard for Kentucky. I'm going to probably butcher his name, but it's Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. Did I say that right?
Is it Gilchrist Alexander?
No, it's Gilgeous.
Yeah. I'm not good at names either, so I'm not going to try.
Gilgeous-Alexander. I'm probably butchering. I apologize to the young man. We've had a lot of time taken up about talking about Colin Sexton and Trae Young.
Yeah.
But this kid is the real deal. And he seems to play with a relative floor, like he's very much a floor general in my mind. The concern for Kansas State is they force a lot of turnovers, which was why they won their first 2 games. 23% of the possessions of the opponent, they force a turnover in the first 2 games of the tournament. But they've given up 22% turnovers on their end. Now, their leading scorer, Dean Wade, 6'10 junior, is out. He was out for the first 2 games, unclear status in the second game.
Okay.
Might contribute to that. When you don't have your go-to guy, it contributes to that. That's why I like Kentucky a lot. Because I like they have a point guard who can really slow the game down. He's an excellent point guard. He's played above his age level. He's still left in the tournament. The other 2 guys aren't now. I know he's at Kentucky and not Alabama or Oklahoma. But I'm with you. I really like Kentucky here. To me, if someone said pick a lock
for the Final Four,
no, for this week.
Oh no! Oh, for this round, yeah, I'd pick this as the lock.
I would pick as lock.
Yeah,
only because Jim Boeheim is the coach of Syracuse. If it wasn't for that, I would pick Duke. But this would probably be my lock. I think Kentucky moves to the next round.
Well, and Syracuse. I mean, we'll talk about them a little more in a second. They've shown to step up to the challenge when they need to.
Right.
Kansas State almost backed their way through, 2 games. They played very well against Creighton, but they just took advantage of a 16 seed, really.
Mm-hmm. Which has never been done before in men's basketball. But yes, I agree.
Yep.
And the last game here in this section, I think this is a fascinating game. It's a late one though, 10:07.
Yeah.
So I mean, I'm hoping I can stay up. It's Gonzaga, 4 seed versus number 9 Florida State. Gonzaga opens up, but it's a 5.5 point favorite. Thoughts on Gonzaga, Florida State?
Yeah, so it's not straightforward that it's an absolute lock, but I think Gonzaga's going to get this one done. I think Florida State has an opportunity to slow Gonzaga down a little bit to start, but I think the Bulldogs come out, if it is close at halftime, and just pour it on the Noles. Florida State has a pretty good defense. They shoot the ball pretty well, but kind of like with Kentucky, I think Gonzaga can outclass them in scoring. They certainly can outclass them in size. And I would say they might be a better passing team. The defense it might be up there, but I just think Gonzaga does get it done and moves on here.
Yeah, I'm with you very much so here. I don't want to call it a lock because I was very impressed with Florida State's ability to pack the basket late against Xavier.
Mm-hmm.
Gonzaga did what I told you. The first game against UNC Greensboro, they won on what was almost a buzzer beater. And normally you'd say, well, they're not that strong, but I like that from them. So the other thing about Gonzaga that I think can help them against Florida State is they're a deep team, and they're more versatile than last year. They had Zach Collins was a lottery pick off the bench, the great center. They also had Nigel Gross, but they've got a lot of guys who are like 6'8", 6'9", that I think are very versatile scorers.
Yep.
So, and their freshman, Zach Norvell, looks excellent so far. So I'm with you as well. I got to say, I think Mark Few deserves a lot more credit than we give him because he's stuck around at Gonzaga and his staying power there. They're not a mid-major to me anymore. I know they're in, but to me, they're like Wichita State. Like they deserve a high seed every year because they just consistently reload and they roll out new guys. Jonathan Williams is excellent. Josh Perkins. I think we need to talk more about how good Mark Few's been, and I'm not sure why a big program doesn't knock on his door and offer him way too much money.
No, it's an interesting point. I mean, one thing that popped into my head is Wichita State moved this year. We mentioned that before. They moved into the Big East, which is an basketball-only conference. Mm-hmm. So that kind of makes it a little more accessible. But one thing that pops into my head is that in other, lesser college sports, whether it be college hockey, college lacrosse, college football in the lower levels, even, or rather the FCS, you do have schools that are in one conference as a, one sport only. And it makes me think, because Gonzaga's been in this position where they've basically been a lock to come out of the West Coast Conference every single year for I want to say 15 years, where they basically St. Mary's can, bite on their heels, but yeah, I mean they've pretty much been the favorite, at least an arm and a leg above, head and shoulders above. So my whole spiel being, I wonder why, with few staying and them constantly being at this level, why haven't they decided to be a basketball only member of the Pac-12 or a different conference, if you will?
Well, and that's a great point. I think the one thing that they've really done though is if we look at their schedule, they go out of their way to play. So they actually started the season against Texas Southern, who was in the tournament this year.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, they played Ohio State, they played Florida, they played Texas, they played Creighton, they played Villanova, and they played Washington. So they went out of their way to find. Now, obviously, you have to create a pedigree to be allowed into these kind of tournaments early on, but they went out of their way to schedule difficult teams to start. That was really the big negative to St. Mary's, is that as good as St. Mary's was this year, they didn't play anybody. Like, they played Georgia and lost, but then they played like Washington State and Cal, who did not have good seasons. Cal came on a little late, but other than Gonzaga,
none of those teams made the tournament too.
Right. St. Mary's didn't play anybody. I think the problem there is that if you're St. Mary's, they've kind of built that pedigree. So if you're going to put Gonzaga and St. Mary's same conference, and I know Gonzaga has had a little bit more success, but
yeah, it's more sustained.
I agree with that. But St. Mary's has been good for a long enough time that like Dellavedova went there years ago. So
yeah, that's true.
They're good enough where they need to start to schedule opponents. So Gonzaga goes out of their way to schedule difficult opponents so that they make sure that even if Gonzaga hadn't won their conference, they probably still would have been in the tournament. Because they're the Boise State of old of college basketball.
So I agree with that. You're saying St. Mary's is?
No, Gonzaga.
Gonzaga is, yeah.
Because
I think they're better. Obviously, we're comparing the late 2000s of college football, and Boise State was at their top when there wasn't a playoff,
right,
versus having the NCAA tournament. So even in years where Gonzaga, basically, to put it this way, if Gonzaga didn't win the West Coast Conference, a bubble was burst.
Right,
whoever ended up winning the West Coast Conference, because Gonzaga was that much of a lock to get into the tournament.
Right.
Which you're absolutely right that Boise State's in that same
right
echelon.
And it's one of the reasons why I know a lot of people had a problem with. Well, people were complaining that UCF didn't get an opportunity to win the national title this year in football.
Yeah,
but to me, UCF and St. Mary's match up better. So UCF didn't have the strength of schedule. If you're going to be a mid-major, you need to schedule opponents. Even if you lose to them, you need to schedule opponents that are going to be difficult.
Yeah.
Now, football is a totally different sport, so I don't want to dive too.
Yeah, because you can afford losses in basketball.
Right, but to me, Gonzaga went out of their way to schedule. I mean, they literally
that's a really good point.
In a row, they played OSU, Florida, Texas, 3 games in a row. They went 2-1. They lost to Florida, 111 to 105. And they played somebody I don't even know whose name they are. Then they played Creighton, Villanova, Washington. So 3 games, one gave off 3 games. They went and they lost to Villanova. So they went 4-2 in those games. But that shows the committee that they know they're in a small conference, so they schedule difficult out-of-conference games. And unlike football, teams are willing to schedule games against good opponents. Like St. Mary's, if they went out of their way to schedule some difficult opponents, people would do that. So they need to work on that for next year. St. Mary's does, because St. Mary's had a great year, 29-5, but they didn't play anybody of value, and that's why they didn't make the tournament.
Yeah.
But now maybe it's because Mark Few's been there long enough, but to me, St. Mary's, and I'm going on a tangent about St. Mary's because I wanted them in the tournament, but I don't think they deserved it as compared to what Gonzaga did with their schedule.
No, I agree with you. That's an excellent point, and I think we're taking a long time to kind of recognize Gonzaga because we gave Texas A&M and Michigan a lot of credit, but Gonzaga is certainly a worthy candidate. They came into the tournament ranked 8th overall by the AP, so they certainly are a worthy candidate of a Final Four appearance. So I mean, they're a good team. It should be a fun game against against Florida State, but then that Elite Eight matchup is going to be pretty great as well.
Right, and I think my big point is to think of Gonzaga as anything other than a powerhouse college basketball team is wrong.
Yeah.
That's where I'm going with this.
I love it.
Right, and you know what? I'm going to root for Michigan and Nova because I'm a big Michigan fan and I'm a big Nova fan. But if Gonzaga faces anybody else but Nova, I'm going to root for Gonzaga. And because they should have won on that buzzer beater. Remember that a couple years back?
Yeah.
Oh my God. So anyway, I don't want to harp too much on that because we got to get to Friday's slate. But I just wanted to point out that Mark Few deserves way more credit than he gets on a consistent basis. And that program is loaded every year. And it's not with great recruits, because they didn't come in with top level recruits. He coaches them up. They had no top 75 freshmen enter the program this year. He just makes great basketball players, and I think he deserves credit.
No, I agree with you as well. But like you said, we do have another entire day's worth of Sweet 16 games to get to.
I've had an 8.5% Imperial IPA tonight, so I'm getting a little fired up.
Yeah, well, let's plug your beer corner beer quickly. You wrote a little article. And you had a little beer to talk about.
I'm going to give an apology right now on the pod. I've been very bad, and if there's one thing I should continue to do, it's the beer corner, because I love trying new stuff. So I went out with my brother this weekend. We went over to a local spot. We found Neshaminy Creek. It's a local beer brewed in Croydon, Pennsylvania, and they have the Shape of Hops to Come. It's an Imperial Indian Pale Ale, and I'll leave it at that. Check out the beer corner about it. I'm hoping to have one coming out at least bi-weekly, hopefully weekly, whenever I try something new. I want to get it out there because I think there's a lot of great beers to try that people should be looking for. You know why? Because a lot of times you walk into a bar and they give you this draft list, like 50 beers. You've never heard of any of them.
Yeah.
And you're like, well, I'm just going to get what I normally get. So we'll see what happens. But this was a fantastic beer, and it's worth the pickup as you leave winter and go into spring. This is a great finishing winter beer because we're going to start to get into the Corona season, easy to drink, light beers. This is a great one to finish the winter season on a try.
I like it. I love that the beer corner's back.
Mm-hmm.
Well, let's move on to Friday.
Bug me about it.
All right. So we start off in the Midwest. We got, I'm going to say, no, I'll say the next game in the Midwest is the least exciting of this side of the bracket.
Okay.
But we have Kansas and Clemson at 7:07. This one coming from Omaha, Nebraska, the Midwest regional final. Clemson comes into this one against Kansas. I have them as a 4.5-point dog. I think they can play Kansas tough. But what do you think?
Were you surprised? 30-point victory over the 4 seed.
Yeah.
And I didn't think Kansas blew Seton Hall out of the water at all. I was surprised by that line.
Yeah, I guess maybe because looking at some of their losses, they have lost to Syracuse. They lost to Duke at home. So maybe they're kind of just looking at the rest of the field and kind of just seeing comparing the those results against a Kansas team. I don't know. I mean, if I knew that, I'd be a Vegas odds maker, but maybe that's a thought.
Yeah, I mean, I think they're not, and look, you can't disrespect Bill Self in Kansas because they've been an amazing program for they basically just win the Big 12 every year.
Yeah.
But I thought, and I'm gonna so the problem with Kansas is that their depth in the front court is minimal, and he's been injured. So Aduka Azubuike is their center, and this guy he's a physical specimen. I watched him. I mean, he's big. If he can stay out of foul trouble and stay healthy, they're as talented as any team in the nation. But the problem is he's either not healthy or he's in foul trouble. So Seton Hall threw Angel Delgado at him, who had like 24 points and 22 rebounds or something stupid like that. If he can, so he was a little tired, but if you can get him into foul trouble, you're going to beat Kansas, because Devontae Graham I know he's been a good player, but I'm not sure he's that good compared to what they've had in recent years. So to me, I like Clemson here. They're very athletic. They're a very athletic team. They've been playing very, very well, and they hammered Auburn. I was very, very impressed, and they're very good defensively, and they can score. So I'm taking Clemson here in the upset.
No, I'm going to take them as well. I agree with you there that Kansas is beatable, and I think that Clemson, they look strong. They look very good against Auburn. I think their defense is solid enough that they can kind of disrupt the Jayhawks in their rhythm a little bit, and just enough to get by them. So I'm gonna take Clemson as well. I think they put it all together.
Yeah, and I think I'm not, and like I said, I think the hard part is everyone goes back and say how people were misseeded. I don't think Kansas was misseeded. I think they deserved the 1 seed.
Oh, for sure.
That being said, this is their time to lose. So I'm with you. I like Clemson here. And Clemson's kind of a surprise because their coach was kind of on the hot seat to start this year, and all of a sudden he's not. So not a bad run for him here.
No. I mean, have you seen that? Just a quick aside, since we're in the same region, that everybody's blowing up Tom Izzo and saying that he's on the smoldering hot seat, the lava seat.
That is like the worst hot take of all time.
Right? How crazy is that shit?
Because if you think he should be fired, then you have no idea. Like, he is one of the best coaches, arguably of all time, because that program was not good before Izzo.
Yeah.
Like, so that is like the worst hot take I've ever heard in my entire life.
The best, though, just quick with them, is that you and I got very excited about the potential Izzo Coach K matchup. Everybody got excited about the potential Kentucky Arizona matchup. We basically all just cursed these potential matchups and caused upsets to happen. I mean, we're big Juju guys here at the Thunderbug, if you're unaware, and we really were fucking with the Juju gods coming into the tournament, and they struck back.
No, I'm with you. I mean, people were just picking, like everyone had Michigan State.
Yep.
Even Virginia was kind of a hot pick. North Carolina was a big time pick. Arizona and a lot of these teams have just gotten beat up pretty badly.
Yeah, it's really funny. There's a girl in my office who's in our pool who picked no upsets. So really? She's actually tied for first place right now. But she's fucked for the rest of the tournament because she had all 4 1 seeds. Right. 2 of them are gone. I think it was Virginia Villanova, so she lost one of her finals teams.
That's not good.
But it's one of those things that, like, you basically call into question of, like, people like us who do a podcast, anybody else that watches college basketball throughout the year. You think the upsets this way, that way, the other way. And coming out of the first weekend, basically somebody that goes the index fund route of picking their bracket, keeps pace and outperforms. But that's why keeping your Final Four teams intact, especially through the first weekend, is a big key. And you only having 2 left, not feeling so hot about winning any cash.
Right. I mean, yeah, I'm with you. The next game to me is I'm going to be sweating this game.
This might be the best game.
I know.
Definitely of the Friday games.
I think I'm with you there, mostly because the game we'll talk about after this, I think is going to be a strange game. I think this was along with Michigan, Texas A&M, but I think this one definitely, because you got 2 coaching legends. You got 2 teams that I think. I mean, I can honestly see West Virginia winning the title, but you got number 1 Nova versus number 5 West Virginia.
Yep.
727 tip. Nova's 5.5 point favorite. And I love Nova, and I'm taking them here, but man, I'm so nervous.
I might take West Virginia plus 5.5, but still pick Nova to win, like on the money line. But yikes! I mean, this is going to be a really good game. Both teams can shoot the shit out of the ball.
Yep.
West Virginia is a very good defensive team, and they're very good at getting rebounds. So I think that helps keep this one close. I mean, they can stop you. They can block the ball. They can steal it from you. Right. I mean, their defense can potentially put Nova, at a couple stalled out stretches there.
No,
I think that you might see a couple scoring droughts. It keeps it close, but I am going to pick the Wildcats here.
Yeah, I'm still taking Nova. I mean, I think the big thing is they've got 3 to 4 ball handlers, right? So Brunson, Booth, DiVincenzo can handle the ball, even Bridges to an extent. Having that senior leadership, because Javon Carter, who I love, is going to try to put on a show. So if you can beat their press, if you can beat their excellent defense, and I think Nova has the guards to do it, which is why I think NCAA is a guard-driven league. I think they can cause some problems for West Virginia. So I like them. And the 5.5 point line is kind of a sucker line because you can easily see this being like a 4-point game late and then like a couple fouls moving it to 6 kind of thing. I like Nova, but I think in terms of everyone loved their bracket side, but then when I look down and I'm like, wait a second, 1-5-3-2. Like, wait a second, they don't have anybody. They don't have any 11s or double-digit seeds. Like, this is a tough game for them, but I think they win it, and I think it's a good thing for them to continue to grind.
Yeah, that close win. I agree.
Right.
It's always, you have a couple of those. It's, different kinds of wins that you need to check off. One is the close grinder or, buzzer beater. One's a big blowout of a team you shouldn't have blown out. I think you're right. This is the close sweater that you have to win on your road to the title.
Right. But I would say, I mean, the Nova has the team to blow anybody out at any moment. And I think that's the one positive.
Yeah.
Because their ability to shoot the ball, I was more than impressed with what they did against Alabama because I actually thought
to put it into perspective, they shoot over 50% on the year. That's so absurd. True. West Virginia's 43, nearly 44%. So that's not too bad either, but 50%. 50%.
It's pretty wild.
It's pretty nuts.
Yeah, I'm with you. Yeah. All right. But go Nova. I'm all Nova'd up right now. Between them and Michigan. Let's go.
All right. So we move on to the biggest difference of seeding. The 2-seed Duke out of the Midwest taking on Syracuse. 9:37 approximate start time on Friday night. Matt, break this one down for me.
So we talked about Syracuse at length, and we even talked about Duke, I think, pretty much. I just think this is the game where Syracuse gets exposed. There are a reason they were 23-13, and nothing against Arizona State or TCU or even Michigan State. But Coach K is in a league of his own, and I know Tom Izzo they just played Tom Izzo. I think Duke is locked in. Mm-hmm. My only concern is they haven't had a tough game. I think I would take Syracuse on the money line, 11.5 point favorite for Duke, but I'm taking Duke in the game, and there's too much talent, and they've kind of gelled a little bit. They're, to me, my favorite out of this. I would actually put money of all the teams left. Duke would be my team to make it to the Final Four. If I had to pick one team, guaranteed money line, Duke would be that team. Because right. I don't love. I know we talked about Clemson and Kansas. I don't think either of them are next level. I don't think Syracuse is. So I think Duke, if I had to put money on one game, it would be Duke.
No, I would agree with you. I'm going to pick Duke to just edit you. You might pick Syracuse on the spread. The money line, granted, you get some value.
I screwed that up. You're right.
No, you're good. You're good. Just wanted to clarify for everybody. Although they're plus 600, if you really think the Orange are going to win, it's not bad. Some bad value. Duke minus 900. That means you got to bet 900 to win 100. Right. Yikes. But
I think that's a little rude to Syracuse, but
a little bit. But if you bet $100, you win 600 for Syracuse to win. So not too bad there. 6-1.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think Duke, we've talked about them at length, so I'll keep it quick. I think they can score pretty well. They're also a very accurate team. They're at 49.6% where they're shooting. I think they had a nice couple wins down the stretch. They had that loss to UNC in the ACC tournament. They had 2 solid wins. Nothing really too close or any really to qualify as a blowout. Both were, I guess Iona, it's 22 points. That's a 2 over 15. Not everybody can be from a certain sleepy little town in Pennsylvania. But yeah, I think it's Duke picks it. They're 90% or 90% according to ESPN's BPI, the Basketball Power Index. I thought at first that was the people picking it on ESPN. That's why I got tripped up. But yeah, I mean, Marvin Bagley Jr., I think, has a day. He can rebound the shit out of the ball. He can shoot the lights out. I just think it's a
Yeah.
It's a slam dunk.
There's two things I want to bring up about this game. One, and you just brought up Marvin Bagley. Now, Michigan State. This is an incredible number. Michigan State against Syracuse pulled down 56% of its misses were offensive rebounds.
Holy shit!
Yeah. So the 2-3 zone doesn't necessarily lend itself to great offensive rebounding. And if you're going to play against Marvin Bagley, you better be ready for that. So I think that's a huge deal in this game. And they basically wanted Michigan State to win that game, and Michigan State just couldn't make a three-point shot. It was incredible. The other thing I would say is that Syracuse is one of the few teams that runs a true zone that they run all the time. A lot of teams mix it up. Not a lot of teams actually run defensive zones as much as you think in college basketball.
Mm-hmm.
There is one exception this year that you would know, and that's Duke. Duke changed its scheme to a zone defense this year because they were struggling man-to-man. To me, that shouts, okay, so Duke, not only are they running a zone defense, they're practicing against said zone defense.
Ooh.
So they have some experience to how to beat a zone. Because there's a reason that the NBA doesn't use a lot of zone. There's a reason that the zone, if the 2-3 zone was the end-all be-all, everybody would use it. But they don't. Now, part of that's personnel, but part of that's also because there are clear weaknesses to the zone, such as defensive rebounding. So I like Duke because of that. And I like them to win. I think it'll be under 11.5 points, but I still like them in this game.
Interesting. I like that a lot.
56% of your misses, you got offensive rebounds on and you lost the game? I don't even understand how that's a statistic. That's like stupid bad if you're saying
that is, yeah. Holy shit.
So pretty wild stat there. I thought I'd point that out. I looked that up. I was like, wow, that's incredible.
No, I like it a lot. We're agreed. We both have Duke playing Clemson in the next round.
Excellent.
We finish up with, I just clicked on the wrong one, Texas Tech playing Purdue. Matt, while I load this one back up because I clicked on Villanova again, break this one down for me.
So I think the big thing is Purdue didn't really get tested with the loss of Isaac Haas in the last game. So I think that Texas Tech is going to give them everything they've got, and I've been pretty high on Texas Tech since the start of the tournament for one of their main reasons because they lost. Because they had some injuries in the tournament that I think actually brought them down to a 3 seed. This was like a top 10 team all year. Yeah. So as much as I think Purdue, before Haas's injury, Purdue had like a very traditional team.
Yeah.
They had a rugged point guard. They had an excellent 2 guard in Carson Edwards, an excellent 3 in Vincent Edwards. They've got a very talented and deep bench. I do think Haas's injury is going to very much so negatively affect this team. And I like Texas Tech's length and the return of Keenan Evans to this game. So I'm going to take Texas Tech. If Isaac Haas was healthy, I would take them here. I'm not a big Purdue guy, but I would take them. By the way, Matt Harms is a 7-3 center off the bench for them, but I don't think they're the same squad. So I'm taking Texas Tech. I love them. And I'm very nervous with Villanova to face them because of their length and their defense and their ability to score. So they're a good team, and I could easily see them in the Final Four.
No, I agree with you. And the Matt Harms point, I'm glad you brought him up. He played very well against Butler in that spot start, which it looks like it's probably going to continue. And I don't know if he necessarily does it for 2 games in a row. I think Texas Tech statistically matches up to Purdue pretty well. I think their defense might be slightly a bit better. Offensively, it could potentially be a little spotty, but I do like Texas Tech here. I also pick them. They do come in as a 1.5 point dog, but basically even on the money line, which tells you it might be a hot pick straight up. Mm-hmm. But it should be a fun game to watch. I should say that I think loaded up on the Nova game, so I think we undersold this one a little bit.
This could, if Harms can play at all, this could be a fascinating basketball game. I couldn't agree more there, because he did average. He didn't average a ton of minutes because of Haas, but like he's got the size and ability. So if he steps up here, it's going to be a tough game either way. If he steps up, I would want to bet on this game because I just can't figure Purdue out.
No. It's a stay away game.
Yeah, they've got a ton of talent on that team. So I think regardless. Dakota Mathias, by the way, for Purdue, I want to give a shout out to a guy that when you see him, I don't see basketball player, but when you watch him run around the floor, he's a top defender and a top three. He's like a top defender, and he doesn't make any sense. So I keep going back and forth because I keep trying to find reasons for Purdue to lose. And I love Texas Tech, but man, I wouldn't want to pick this game. What's the line?
Line is Purdue -1.5.
No, that makes sense. That's I wouldn't
pick, straight up.
Yeah, straight up. Right. It's as close as you can get to a straight up game. Okay, excellent.
Well, half a point is
a point. Okay.
But yeah, so it looks like where did we differ? We differed with.
So we differed with you picked Kansas or Clemson. I forget.
I picked Clemson.
Okay, we don't differ at all on Friday. On Friday, on Thursday we differ with.
I think the only game we differ is Loyola and Nevada.
Yep, that's the only game. We have one game difference. Now you were pretty high on Texas A&M, but I'll give you credit for sticking with our boys. Yeah. So I won't give you too hard of a time. But if Michigan loses, you're going to hear an earful.
No, yeah, I absolutely would, and I would deserve it. But quickly, let's pick our Final Four since we won't have an opportunity to break it down beforehand. I think we're probably going to be pretty similar. I'm going to go Kentucky, Villanova, Michigan, and I'm going to go with Duke. But I wouldn't be surprised seeing if that Clemson team plays well against Duke.
It's really tough for me. I'm with you with Michigan, Duke, and Nova. I want to take Loyola Chicago. Yeah,
I really do.
And God, I'm so torn. The only team I know that won't come out of there to me is Kansas State. Because even if they somehow manage to get by Kentucky,
Nevada could put it together.
I know, and Nevada, I picked Loyola, but I could see Nevada running it. But I'm going to be smart. I'm going to take Kentucky to run through it, and so we're going to have the same Final Four. I think it's going to be Michigan Nova still. I think Michigan figures it out. But if it's not Michigan, I think I'm with you. Texas A&M could easily slip in there. Clemson could easily slip in there. So there's just a lot of good teams left.
I think your analysis of saying the winner of the Michigan Texas A&M game goes to the Final Four is pretty spot on. I'd love to see Gonzaga pull it off
because
it's just fun seeing them do it. Mm-hmm. It was nice to see them finally get into the Final Four last year and to see them do it 2 years in a row, especially after all those misses. It's like at this point, and it'll help us transition to the next topic quickly, but like Alexander Ovechkin, if the Flyers are out, you almost want to see him get through it because usually they're playing the Penguins, but also he hasn't done it, so you don't want to hear one of the best scorers in hockey history not be up there in the late in the season.
Right. Well, I mean, hey, you should just come over to the Flyers and it'd be great.
Well, I mean, you gotta be smart with the cap.
Right. Let's touch briefly here on the Flyers.
Yep.
Everyone was giving them a hard time when they got a little cold there last week. The way I saw it was, though, them getting cold at that time was better than any other time because they win 2 games over the weekend, including a very impressive. Well, they really came back in both. They came back in the first game, but the second game they beat a really good team in the Washington Capitals, the best team in the Metropolitan.
Okay.
They're getting hot at the right time now. This is like teams are going to go hot and cold. It's how 82 game seasons work. Unless you're Golden State or unless you're apparently the Nashville Predators, it's going to happen. So I am very happy with how this is laid out.
Okay.
And I loved the wins over the weekend, gritty wins, and you're still seeing production from the young people. Konechny, who had his first goal?
Oscar Lindblom.
Yep, Lindblom had his first goal of the weekend. So those are really big things to me that stand out. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games left. Okay, we need 11 points. So we've got to go 5-5, or a couple overtime wins. We go to Detroit. We go to New York. You'd like to see yourself coming out as 2-0 from those games into a huge game at Pittsburgh on the 25th of March.
Yes, this Sunday.
That's the kind of game where we'd like a little revenge. I'd like to see us win there. Then you go at Dallas, at Colorado. I think those are winnable games. And then you go at versus Boston April 1st is probably our most difficult game in terms of pure record left, although I think Pittsburgh is more difficult. Then you go Islanders, Carolina, Rangers. So, like, theoretically, we should be able to win 2 of the last 3 games if you're fighting for a playoff spot. But you got to get there.
Yep.
So, I was pretty impressed, though, with the performance. I think the teams – now, the goalie situation, though, is – I mean, I'll ask your thoughts, but the goalie situation is terrifying.
No, it absolutely is. So one of the things that I did want to point out, you talked about how every team gets hot and cold. The Flyers almost seem to emphasize the complete ends of the hot and cold spectrum. I need to actually add this up, but they either win, they've won 5 games in a row multiple times. They've lost 5 games in a row multiple times. They lost 10 games in a row back in November and December. The goalie situation has been up and down all year, unlike a team like Vegas, who's played 4 different goalies, as have the Flyers. The Flyers have had a shaky run at it. You get Peter Mrazek, who's been good at times. He's been very, very cold at times.
Right.
See Thursday night against Columbus,
God.
where he got yanked, and Alex Lyon, in basically 2 periods of play, kept them in it. The Flyers almost came back. But then you have Mrazek play incredibly well against one of the best offensive teams in the NHL, in the Washington Capitals yesterday afternoon. Alex Lyon can step up when needed, and he has really since Brian Elliott got hurt, but he's definitely not the guy to rely on. I would not to be punny, I would not put Alex Lyon over Mrazek on the depth chart. What'll be interesting is if and when Elliott comes back, if and when Neuwirth comes back, how do they run this team in terms of the goalie situation, and who do they carry into the playoffs, assuming that you play basically above 500 hockey, and I think you're in it at 42 and call it 42 and 40, break down the overtime losses any which way you want to. I think you're right, though. What'd you say? 11 points locks it up?
Yeah,
I would agree with that. I mean, so Detroit and the Rangers, you hope are wins. You did go to the new Little Caesars Arena a little while ago, and pulled out a W there. That was back at the end of January when before when Brian Elliott was still hurt, pre-Mrazek. So you hope that they play well there. The Rangers, that is at home. The first time the Rangers come here this year, they've basically just completely sold out. So, I mean, you'd hope that's a win. I do think that 3-game road stretch, really the 4 games from Pittsburgh to Boston, but those probably are the make or break. You're 0-3 against the Penguins, so you'd like to not get season swept going into right now your playoff opponent. And it's on the road. Big time there. Dallas is winnable, but they're still pretty good. They're making a run at the playoffs. Same with Colorado. So those aren't ones that you want to sleep on. And then you're right. Boston is probably your toughest opponent down the stretch.
Well, here's the only concern I have in terms of physically missing the playoffs. So right now there's one team that can do that, and that's the Panthers. The Panthers could take over a spot. Now, Flyers are at 85 points. Columbus Blue Jackets 83, Devils 82, Panthers 77. But the big issue with the Panthers, though, is that they have 13 games remaining.
Exactly.
So now a lot of these, they're going to have a big road trip in there. And they're going to end the game against some tough teams, Nashville, Boston to end the season. Actually, they play Boston 3 times in those 13 games, twice on the road. They also play Nashville. They play Toronto. They play Columbus. They also have some cupcakes. So they're a concern. Now, the positive is there's still 2 teams in between you. So even if they win out or something like crazy like that, you still have to be ahead of 3 teams basically at this point. So I like that part. We're also, +3 in goal differential, but we were 3-6-1 on our last 10. We just need to go like 6-3, I think, and I think we'll be fine. Yeah. Even 5-2-2, like you got to have a couple overtime losses or something.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, no points is better than nothing, or 1 point's better than no points. I mean, it's worth mentioning too that with just to kind of add on to the Bruins point, they signed one of their coveted juniors who played for Team USA in the Olympics, Ryan Donato, coming out of Harvard. He scored in his NHL debut. So I mean, the Bruins they're rolling in the right direction, as is Tampa, who already locked up their spot in the playoffs. That's a really good point. The Florida would really have to make something happen, but having 4 games in hand to the Flyers when you're 8 points out is, it helps, but
it does.
It would take a lot for everything to fall apart. But
yeah,
nothing until it's a guarantee, I guess.
And the other positive is that Columbus and the Devils have 10 games left, so one more than us, but not that many. And the Devils, the Columbus finishes up with Pittsburgh and Nashville, which is a tough back end stretch. They also play Florida and Boston in there, so they could easily be out. And so I just, when I look at that, I say, okay, you know what? I don't think it's necessarily going to be because there's teams in between us, and that makes it a lot better for us. New Jersey goes to Pittsburgh. Tampa Bay, they play Pittsburgh again. They end the season against Toronto and at Washington, which I think is very difficult. So I don't think it's going to be very difficult for all three of those teams to jump us. I think that's
I agree. I agree. It'd be, I'd almost rather play the Capitals given how they've played. They're 3-1 against them this year. And I've been at 2 of them, and they've scored a grand total of 14 goals at the Wells Fargo Center. So they at least have that there, where they have not looked so good against the Penguins at home.
Right.
But, there's definitely it's going to be a fun run to the end. The Flyers have 4 home games and 5 road games. So it'll be fun. Obviously, keep an eye out on our social media for when we're at those games. I'll be there Thursday night. Quick note on the West. It's basically the same thing that we talked about the last time we were talking about hockey a couple weeks ago. You still couldn't sell a playoff position to a Western Conference team if it was, soaked in gold.
Yeah. Like the Flames are up to 80 points, but I think they're out of it even at 80. To me, the Blues and the Stars are like, what do we have to do? The Kings been hot enough. I wouldn't want to play the Kings with Jonathan Quick back, by the way, if I was Nashville or Vegas. I think that's going to be a dangerous game. It's so tight, man. Oh my God. I wouldn't want to be over there right now. Anaheim, Avalanche, Kings, Stars, Blues, all within 3 points of each other. And if you're the Sharks or the Wild and you have a little bit of a slip up, you might drop down too. So don't envy any of those guys.
Well, what's nuts too is that it looks like that unless the Kings or the Ducks mess up, you're going to get 4 and 4 from each division.
That's nice.
So it really is. If you fall just ever so slightly, I think San Jose's got it locked up, but you could really see one division shift power, get the shift of power and get that extra wild card team on the other.
Right.
And in that case, you might get some type of run like you did with the Predators. Almost did it a couple years ago. Last year, obviously, they played the Blackhawks and went through their own division, but a couple of years ago, they went through the Pacific and nearly got out into the Western Conference Finals. Mm-hmm. They just lost to San Jose in their run to the Cup. But it's going to be interesting. I mean, all of those teams in the Pacific loaded up a little bit at the deadline, so they could be there could be a serious threat. Great call though on the Kings. I mean, they're a team that have quietly been around in that wild card discussion, but if they put something together just down the stretch, they could jump up into the 2 seed. I don't think they're going to catch Vegas for the 1, but they could draw Nashville and it turns into a series of overtime games.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's whoever comes out of the West is going to be battle weary.
Yeah. But I think that's going to do it for us. You have anything else from this weekend? Did you watch the golf at all, or were you all college basketball?
Oh, I did watch a little bit of the golf. I thought Tiger. I thought he showed that he's still involved. Rory, that's a huge. To me, it's actually a bigger for Rory than it was Tiger to show that he can kind of still do it. So, big fan of what Rory did this week, and I think it sets him up well. But once again,
obviously love what Rory did.
Tiger showed that he can get back in anything, and the short game is back. So I think very nerve-wracking across the board, if you ask me.
No, he looked great. He made a charge. I mean, really, after kind of almost playing himself out of it on Friday, shooting even when everybody else was really far into the red. and he finishes, only a few strokes off. I thought it was unfortunate to not see Henrik play, well in the weekend. Bryson DeChambeau showed a lot. I'm not the biggest DeChambeau fan, but he was right there. And if Rory doesn't make that putt that's so similar to Tiger from, I think it was 10 years ago on the 18th hole to get a 2-stroke lead, I think DeChambeau might not. He didn't crumble because he still, I think, finished even down the stretch, but I think you might have seen, you might have seen him have a little more oomph in his step coming down the stretch, down the 18th hole. But Rory sinking that, I think it was a 10%. They showed it on the Golf Channel to make that putt. I think that was the Bane breaking the bat, if you will.
No, I'm with you there. But excited for golf's just going to turn up. It's going to get wild. So
we're 2 weeks from the Masters.
Yeah, that's incredible.
You have the Houston Open this weekend. Baseball starts next week.
That's right, and you're going to hear from us. Well, you've been doing a little bit on it, but we're going to have some more baseball for you. Kind of want to ruin it.
Yeah.
More baseball coming up from you soon here, though.
Yeah, Greg and I have done, if you haven't listened to our first 2 division previews, we did the AL East and then the NL West. Go search just a little bit down the feed. You'll find it. I think the NL West is actually the most recent episode before this, so not too far. You got to scroll. Matt and I, and maybe Greg, I still have to talk to him. He should be around, but we're going to come back on Wednesday. We're still hammering out which divisions we're going to do, so nothing official yet, but keep an eye out on our social media to find out what it is.
Definitely. I'm looking forward to continued golf fantasy coming up.
Oh, yeah. And we, this guy had a nice little win and now is in the top 10 in the golf fantasy.
Whatever.
Yeah, it was pretty nice. And I won a little bit of money on the regular, regular DraftKings as well. But that'll be fun to talk about because I'm starting to get into that groove. $200 if I win the Masters, or if you win the Masters. Really, if anybody wins the Masters, but it's going to be me.
Whatever, you're the worst.
All right. I think that's going to do it for us, Matt. Thank you as always.
No problem.
All right. Well, we will see you Wednesday night, Thursday if you download this and listen to it on the podcast feed. But of course, look us up and subscribe on iTunes, The Bullpen Cart. Give us a 5-star rating. We'll give you a shout out, or at least we'll try to. Follow us on Twitter, ThunderBLG, ThunderblogSports.com. Of course, the website where you can find all of our great blogs. Thunderblog Sports on Instagram and Facebook. And that's going to do it for my man, Matty D. I am the G-Man. Have a good night, everybody. Thanks again.